to die, and go we know not where, to lie in cold obstruction and to rot. This sensible warm motion to become a kneaded clod, and the delighted spirit to bathe in fiery floods, or to reside in thrilling regions of thick-ribbed ice, to be imprisoned in the viewless winds and blown with restless violence round about the pendant world, or to be worse than worst of those, that lawless and uncertain thought, imagine howling, 'tis too horrible, the weariest, most loathed worldly life, that age, ache, perjury, and imprisonment can lay on nature, is a paradise to what we fear of death. Hello, welcome to the channel. I've done those lines before, and if you recall, I discussed how in the first folio, the line is typically read age, ache, penury, and imprisonment, but there's a J there. All the J's are I in the first folio because there's no J in the ancient Greek alphabet, right? So age, ache, perjury, and imprisonment, right? So I think penury is often read as a result of a printing errors where the dot above the I gets smudged away, right? And then the R connects to the bottom of the J and it becomes penury. And they each work. Right? But these are things that you learn when you look at the old page. I've never been interested in the art in Shakespeare or these 20th century compilations, right? Because it's telling you how you should be reading it. When you can just read it, it's English. Hello, my name is Brian Jennings. Welcome to the channel. Right? This channel is existing for a myriad of reasons, but primarily to discuss the story of the movie Critic. Right? Quentin Tarantino and myself have been embroiled in what has now become a legendary psychic siege for going on 2 years. Right? After he set me up with his remote viewing prowess at a screening of Jackie Brown last year, right, at De Niro Con, right, to question him about his book, Cinema Speculation, right, when I didn't give him what he wanted, right, because he stuck his nose up my letter and turned his back on me, and it was petty. I acknowledge that. I hated myself forever. 100%. Right? That's why I threw myself on the street. Right? That's why I trusted everything that he told me in this way. To make it right. Right? But in his mind, right, like it's all, right, it's a game to him. This thing is a game. And so, when I didn't play by his rules, when I expected simple honesty, he gave me the opposite, 100%. And so that's the contents of my novel. I've written a novelization of my experiences. I hope everyone is having a good Sunday, right? I hope everyone's had a good weekend, right? Quentin, he doesn't want me to make these videos, right? He doesn't want me to live, right? Least of all, he doesn't want me to talk about it. And I tried to play it his way, right? I tried to. I took a job sorting trash. I didn't have any videos online to pay for the lawsuit that he wanted me to file. And he thought that it was funny and appropriate to traumatize me every day. And now, like, we're talking about it because he's going to be evil, right? And he's always going to deny it, right? It's a sick game to them, right? And so I've decided to make another video because I have something going on tonight. I have my first theater audition that I will be going to since all of it, since quitting my job for Quentin. I was working a travel construction job, so I wasn't really like acting in any shows at that time either. But when I wrote the first letters to him, right, I was pursuing being an actor in New York. But I decided to go, right, and so I want to make some videos so that I can bury them in it. I can edit out a bunch of smaller videos so that they don't fester on, on the nature of what I'm talking about, right? Because it's not difficult to understand if you're smart, right? If you know how the universe is put together, right? That really that's what we're talking about here on this channel. Right? Now I'm excited. I try to be at least. He plagues my mind with a great evil constantly. And so in that way, I've decided to write Alan Moore, right? And I'm going to be putting something in the mail tomorrow, right? Because as we get closer and closer, right? His Lifetime Achievement Award, yay! Right? His evil compounds upon itself, right? He's at his breaking point psychologically, right? He constantly wants me to live in fear that he's going to send people to murder me, right? I told everyone involved, right, that he doesn't have to pay me anything, right? That all he has to do, right, is publicly acknowledge me, right, and tell the truth, right? That I'm the reason he canceled the film, and that he set me up at Tribeca, and I heard him. That's enough. That's all. Right? But this is about my scene. Right? I sent him a scene. Right? Everything that he's done has been to get my scene for free. Right? So, what's it about? It's about a writer yelling at people for reading his writing. Right? What does Quentin Tarantino have in his movies? Violence. Right? It's the most badass scene anyone ever sent him. Right? So, right, I did the contents of the novel show, right, palpably, like what I've done, right? Which is more than anyone else ever could. Right? And he could have just left me on the street. That's right? But I suspect, right, that he was at his breaking point then like he is now. And so he pushed me out of town because it was exhausting, right? Not realizing that this thing, like, boom, this thing, it don't matter where we are, right? But he knows where I am, right? And that's where the evil of it all is, right? That if I'm dead, he has no more problems, you understand? Right? He has engendered a condition in our minds psychologically as a result of the time that he and the people around him have spent remote viewing me that is dangerous and ugly, right? That all involved, right? That whomever is involved in this thing, if it's just him, if it's him and 3 or 4 other people, right? That now we're all connected, right? So this is what we're talking about. This is why we're talking about it, right? The novel spans from May of 2021 through February of 2025, though the highest evil has all occurred after April of 2025, right? When Fish did their 8 shows, right? And so, right, what do I mean, right? Anyone who's interested in the things that have been occurring to me, that still occur to me, right? I invite you to watch my video, Plea to the Pope, right? This is dangerous, evil black magic, right? That if I do the same things to him, he'll send people to murder me, right? And then I don't understand his logic at all, right? That he thinks that he owns this thing, right? That's like this thing, this has nothing to do with the movies. Right? So I made my choice. I chose my side. I choose simple honesty. I choose compassion. I choose tolerance. I choose love. Right? You choose cunning. You choose guile. Right? You choose deception. You choose mysteries. Bullshit. Right? If you know a thing, you can teach a thing. Right? You knew I wanted you to take my letter. Right? Right? And again, I hated myself. I thought, oh gosh, he needed this. I wanted to give him what he wanted. Right? But there's something here, right? As far as me, right? Like I suspect he's been doing this the whole time. Right? And so he could have done it different. Right? This last time. But he didn't. He expected to direct me with his mind. And I get it, it's his movie. It's his movie. And the reason that he's not cool, right, is because we're still here. Right? It's because I'm still talking about this online. Right? That if he was cool, right, if he was actually cool, he would have wrote me a single letter with a non-disclosure agreement and a check for my scene and said, there it is, you sign it. Go play Hamlet in Honolulu. And I would have, there you go. What can you say? It's his movie. Right? He thinks that this thing has like something to do with the movies, and it doesn't at all. Right? And now, right, we're all floundering. Right? That all I ever do is seek to express love in my actions. Right? And sometimes he gets the better of me, you know? And he's hardy, and right? But remote viewing, right? This is a palpable thing. This isn't like, I'm not talking out of my ass right now. Right? Where's the document that showed me what he wanted me to do? It doesn't exist. That's the point. Anything that he shows people is a lie. I wrote him twice, as soon as he canceled the film and a week before Tribeca. Refused at the door both times. Right? Right? And in his mind, he was like, oh, he's a natural. And that's true, I am. I'm a psychic clairvoyant, 100%. Right? How many times was I riding on my porch after work and I heard Quentin, oh, he's writing right now. I can't fuck with this guy. Right? Because these are the games that he likes to play. Right? Not me. Right? It's a psychic violation. But I let him play it all the way up to that moment. And then I had it. Boom, right there in the letter. You want me to continue? Right? You take that letter, you look me in the eye. He didn't want to do either of those things. Right? So, and it's his show. Again, it's his show. I chose my side, and it's obviously the right side. Right? Oh, fame. Right? Sure. I could be a great movie star. I could be the finest light in show business. Right? But if this guy is the one that we venerate, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'll live my small life. Right? Regional theater. It's fine. Because that evil, right, that we're like in the middle of now, right? No. And he's sick of it too. Right? He doesn't care at the same time. Right? That he has two beautiful kids, right? That every time that he sends out these attacks of intention, right? That pieces of it attach themselves to his children every time. Not some of the time, every time. They're on the other side of the world, and they're not. They're in the same house. Right? And he's just polluting their psyche. Every time. Every time he thinks hateful, ugly things. Right? So, if you recall, right? We're going through spherical models, right? And here is the newest model, right? 32 faces, right? 12 pentagons, 20 hexagons, right? 360 triangles, right? The next one is this one, the truncated dodecahedron, right? Which is 12 decagons and 20 triangles. It's the dual of this model that I just showed you. At the beginning of the novel are a series of essays, 3 essays, but there's 5 total. The first of which is on magic, the second of which is on time, the third of which is on number, the fourth of which is on geometry, and the fifth of which is on language. That essentially all of these, at least several of them, I don't know about time, but number, language, geometry, magic, and we'll just put time in there too, right? That it all coagulates around the same idea, right? That intellect is the origin of life. Inevitably, in your pursuits towards wisdom, you arrive at the horizon of your ignorance. You arrive at this threshold that can never be circumvented. You can't conquer it. You can't say, bam, okay, now I'm no longer ignorant. Right? Because the universe, right? What was that Churchill line? Is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, shrouded in... He's talking about Hitler. My point is that there's always this boundary, right? And the closer you get to it, the wider the frame gets, right? Just like the Mandelbrot, right? Just like any of these beautiful fractals, right? And so that line, right, is designated by a singular question. Which came first, thought or motion? If we say that manifested life is an expression of motion, which it is, right? From light all the way to uranium, right? But that's a wide gap, right, in experience, right? Then the motion must come from somewhere, right? Like this is the one argument, the intelligent design argument, the fine-tuning argument, right? Right, which is supported by Pre-Brummenbaum's holographic model. Right, we'll come back to that in a second. The other argument is that motion is a pure happenstance of chaos. Right? And so all of memory, right, the collective unconscious, right, all of these things emerge through, right, the arbitrary expression of motion in space. They're each valid intellectually, right? You could say that life is an accident, right? But when I listen to a beautiful piece of music, right, or I read a beautiful piece of writing, I find that very difficult to believe. I consider that to be lazy intellectually. Presupposing the former, that there is a divine light of God, a divine intellectual quality or principle. It exerts its knowing upon the firmament of space, which is the subspatial hologram, right, which manifests reality out of the condition of its motion, right? Then, like the Kabbalah, we have two columns, the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity, right? Each equal in dignity, right, offering up a myriad of expressions and manifestations within their own knowing. At the top is pure deity, right? Kether. Then you have Binan Chokmah, wisdom and understanding, right? And so the first one, okay, and the two of them, real quick, combine to make Dath, intellection, right? Right? If we say that the standard model of physics has some validity, right, then it says that within 1/100 millionth of a second, the four principal powers in physics emerge stable. And that's the strong and weak nuclear forces, special and general relativity, quantum mechanics, and electromagnetism. Right? And so those can be the same four, or it's three emanations, right? Two emanations in deity. Right? So, on the pillar of mercy, right, is the subspatial structural scaffold, right, is the hologram, the quantum hologram, right, that embedded within every cubic centimeter of space, in terms of information, lies the potential for all of manifested reality. And so, right, this is one example, right? This is another example, right? This is another example. Right. Diffused through that, right, is the pillar of severity, right, which is motion, gravity, right? Gravity in the sense of, right, not in the scientific sense. Right? That eventually the divine light of God seeks to express its knowing, right? And so it exerts a pressure upon the quantum hologram, right, as motion, right? And that celestial zephyr, right, the divine light of God, right, exerts its knowing by pushing space against itself, right? And it does this by squeezing from the outside in, right? Collapsing space around itself, engendering friction, which engenders electric resistance, right? Eventually, it becomes so dense with electric resistance, it can no longer remain in inert space and erupts into incandescence as light, right? As corpuscular measurable matter, right? And so the specific dihedral, right? The specific angle, the specific angel or angels with which the Almighty exerts pressure, right, upon the subspatial scaffold, right, is a reflection of what it materializes in the manifested world, right? And so if we close this in a sphere, right, I've said this 100 times, right? There's three, you can put a circle around it, right? And that's a great circle, right? 360 degrees. Each degree is a potential vector of pressure, right? Expressed upon the quantum manifold, upon the quantum hologram, right? Infinite array of great circles that go around the hologram, the subspatial structural hologram, thereby offering the dignity of God's omniscience, right? His processes are aloof and mysterious, but that's an expression which can give you the validity of all seemingly complex substances and life, right? And so as the Creator continues to exert this pressure, this motion of space through space, engendering material shadows to erupt, right, onto the wall of the cave, which is the firmament of space, right? Eventually you arrive at complex life. You arrive at planets, the planetary atmospheric strata, mineral, vegetable, animal, man, right? And so with man, we arrive at what I believe to be the end of evolution, right? Not in a Darwinian sense, right? Right? In a spiritual sense, right? This is a material simulation of a nobler spiritual truth, right? That man has the capacity, his reasoning capacity, right, to look up, see the divinity of the night sky, see the immensity of the heavens, and say, that's like, Orion looks like me, so I must come from up there, right? And inevitably we arrive at literature and writing, right, and language, right? That these are all expressions of the same divinity, right? That inevitably you end up with a blank page and you start expressing your own eternal thoughts as shadows upon them. Take this, for example, right? This right here is the master sketch for this. You understand? Right? That there's a divinity that shapes our ends, right? There's an eternity upon this blank page, right? And with my compass, right, I cast these arcs, right, and make this pattern, right, which I can print out 360 times and end up with this, right? You see? That it's all the same, right? That writing and language is our expression of the divine consciousness which springs forth all life, right? And so the compass, right? I've said this before and I'll say it again, is the most important scientific instrument, right? Because it yields absolute truth every single time, right? That's right. And so, right? The things that we inevitably, right, at the end of our progression, right, comes the unlocking of our primal psychic nature, right? That man is inherently psychic. That the highest expressions of man, right, is the healing of the sick, right, is, right, the expression of his intention, right, to manifest change in the world, right? This is Crowley's definition of magic, right? And I agree with him, right? The clairvoyance, right, remote viewing, psychic phenomenon, all of these things, right? They all exist latent in everyone's mind, though not everyone can utilize them, right? Just like music is latent in everyone's mind, but not everyone can be a musician, right? And so, right, the highest levels of said clairvoyance, right, the highest level of the highest level, right, sees the adept, sees the student behaving like God, right, that God exerts us, God, which is not a creature, right, it's an abstract intellectual quality that allows motion to impinge itself, right, impinge space upon other parts of space, which engenders the creation of matter, right? That the highest levels, right, sees the student exerting a psychic pressure upon the firmament of space, right, to yield their intention or desire, right, to fracture the hologram and rearrange it, right, however they see fit, right? And so, right, this is why I discuss why I make these models, right? That this is a piece of the divine hologram, right? This is another piece, right? this is another piece, right? This is another piece, right? That when you take the time to embed these things into your psyche, into your conscious awareness, right? Then you are holding within your knowing, within your conscious awareness, right? All of these pieces of the divine celestial hologram that occupies every cubic centimeter of space, right? And this is what allows you to be a good remote viewer, right? A good healer, right? A good destroyer of souls, right? And only a sick, evil person would use these powers for evil, right? And so, right, the things that we refer to as psychic, right, thaumaturgy, remote viewing, telepathy, telekinesis, right, psychokinesis, right, are the same things that people refer to as magic and sorcery in centuries past. They're not similar things, they're the same things. The words are different, right? The tactics are the same, right? That you can express through your conscious awareness, right, the same divinity that God Almighty expresses by allowing life to flourish and manifest around its knowing, right? So this is what Quentin and I have been embroiled in, and I've done nothing but try to watch Allison. That's like the only person I ever tried to remote view. Oh, and Anastasio, right? The first time he really started using needles, right? But Quentin has this desire, right, that he wants me to die, right? He doesn't want me to live, right? And so, right, he played a subtle bullshit game for a long time, trying to convince me to blow my brains out about love and a girl, and that's the substance of the novel, right? And now that he's failed to do that, right, he's descended into real palpable black magic evil, right? Which is, again, is my wisdom, right? And hopefully it's just psychological trauma, but I live constantly in a state of fear, especially knowing that like all I've ever asked for is just for him to acknowledge me and to denounce these tactics and say that he doesn't want me to die. That's right. I suspect he has to pay me for my scene. In fact, I'm sure of it. Right? And everything that he's doing now is in an effort to destroy me so he can have my scene for free. Right? Because he's a sad, angry, evil man who doesn't see anything good in his life. Right? He could see all that's good in his life, right? And focus on that, right? He could see that he's a powerful clairvoyant and go try to heal the sick, right? Right? That's what I would do with my family. I'd say, we have this gift, like let's go be good people, But he's an LA cynic, right? All for me. No, I don't take your letter. No, me. You give me what I want. Right? And so I was lost in the mystery of his guile at first and thought, oh no, I blew it. And I wanted to make him happy. But now I see, I chose the right side. Right? So, see what's good in your life. I'll probably make another one. I'm going to stop. Pray for me, pray for Quentin. Pray to bring this to an amicable resolution. Otherwise, we're just mortal enemies, and I'm in fear for my life. When he gets his Lifetime Achievement Award, if this hasn't been resolved, he's going to do dangerous, awful, evil things to me, him and the people around him. It's a sick game to them, 100%. So, right? Help however you can. If nothing else, then by subscribing. God bless.